You know, when we talk about Formula One, there is this expectation of just uncompromising precision. Like, we constantly discuss telemetry and GPS tracking and timing loops that measure, a thousandth of a second.
Right, yeah, they're supposed to be entirely binary. The data is the law.
Exactly. A driver steps out of line by a millimeter, the sensors scream, and the penalty is just instant. But then, I mean, you look at the final seconds of Q3 yesterday at the Red Bull Ring, and suddenly all that precision is just completely out the window.
Oh, it was chaos. Total chaos.
Right. We are looking at a regulatory and safety landscape right now that is, honestly, it's an uncontrolled Wild West. Just picture this. Turn 9. It is the fastest, most terrifying corner on the entire calendar. Max Verstappen's Red Bull is just buried deep in the barriers.
Yeah, carbon fiber everywhere.
Exactly. The dust hasn't even settled. And George Russell, he just blasts right past the wreckage at combat speed to steal what has to be the most controversial pole position of this entire 2026 season.
And look, it wasn't just a controversial lap. I mean, it was a championship-defining moment. The tension on the grid right now is just at an absolute boiling point.
Oh, 100%.
Because the rule book isn't just being debated anymore. It is being actively weaponized by these teams, and the paddock is entirely fractured as a result.
Well, and that's our mission for this deep dive. We are tearing into this whole Mercedes and FIA controversy that defined that Q3 session. We're also breaking down Red Bull's massive upgrades, Ferrari's sleeper strategy that honestly nobody is talking enough about, and the brutal reality check hitting McLaren.
Yeah, no fluff today. Just hard-hitting analysis.
Right, so let's unpack this Turn 9 scandal, because I am still just in total disbelief. So Mercedes left the garages at the last possible second in Q3.
Which, is standard operating procedure for them. You want to maximize track evolution.
Right.
Every single car that runs before you cleans the asphalt, lays down rubber, and basically buys you a few precious milliseconds. But the risk is exactly what happened. You leave yourself completely exposed to any incident ahead of you on the track.
And obviously the incident was Verstappen in the wall. Now, here is where we get into the weeds of the rulebook, specifically Article B 1.9.4 of the sporting regulations.
The famous article.
Right. It states incredibly clearly that passing a double yellow flag in qualifying results in an automatic lap deletion, period. But a single yellow flag, however, only requires a quote-unquote clear reduction in speed.
And that distinction is everything here. Because if you look at the telemetry for Russell's teammate, Kimi Antonelli, he was the first Mercedes on the scene.
Yeah, what did his dash show?
Well, he is on a flyer, right? He's improving his sectors. But as he approaches turn 9, his steering wheel dashboard lights up with a double yellow. So what does he do? He follows the protocol, he aborts the lap, and safely navigates the hazard.
But Russell, who is directly behind Antonelli, facing the exact same telemetry data on his dash, makes a completely different choice. I mean, he gambles, he treats it as a single yellow, gives this tiny, like almost imperceptible lift of the throttle, and then just keeps his foot pinned all the way to the line.
Yeah, he did.
And the FIA, they didn't even investigate it. They literally deemed his lift sufficient. But we need to explain the mechanics of what actually happened here because it is staggering.
We really do. We need to talk about the 2026 MGUK regeneration maps. Because in this current generation of cars, when a driver lifts off the throttle, the kinetic motor generator unit aggressively harvests energy.
Okay, so break that down for me. What does that mean for Russell's lap?
Well, because Russell executed that microscopic lift to satisfy the single yellow requirement, he actually recharged his capacitor just enough to get a terminal velocity boost on the final straight.
Wait, so he literally turned a safety deceleration into a hybrid deployment advantage.
Exactly. It's a masterstroke of in-car processing. I mean, by lifting slightly, he regenerates energy, satisfies the minimum criteria for a single yellow flag lift, and blasts across the line. And technically, if you look at the timing loops, the official track sector marshal system didn't switch to a double yellow until seconds after Russell passed.
Okay, I have to push back on this heavily. I do not care if you call it a masterstroke.
It was brilliant driving, you have to admit.
No. Russell played an incredibly dangerous game here. He had a double yellow warning on his dash. That means there is a severe hazard, like potentially marshals physically on the track, and he prioritized stealing pole position over a driver's safety in a high-speed crash zone.
But the official sector wasn't double yellow yet.
It's like your GPS telling you the road ahead is perfectly clear, even though you can literally see a bridge collapse in front of you through the windshield. I mean, Russell trusted the screen over reality because the screen is what the referees use to issue penalties. How can a severely damaged car sit at turn 9 without an instant red flag from the FIA?
Look, hold on. You're placing the blame on the wrong entity here. Yes, absolutely, the FIA was catastrophically slow to react. They should have thrown the red flag millisecond Max hit the wall, but you cannot blame Russell for exploiting this system.
Why not? He saw the car.
Because it is not Russell's job to police the track or manage race control. His job is to drive the rulebook to perfection. And that is exactly what he did. He calculated the risk. He knew the dash telemetry isn't the official track sector status until the marshals pushed a button and he threaded the needle.
I mean, I think it just shows gross incompetence from race control. But, let's transition from the crash itself to what Verstappen was actually doing right before he lost the rear. Because before turn 9, Max was putting together this magical championship contending lap.
Oh, he was on an unbelievable flyer. And this is crucial, right? Because Red Bull brought a heavily updated RB22 to their home race.
Right, this is the big one.
Yeah, this was their massive aero package designed to just strike back at the grid. The new floor edges seal the vortex under the car far better than the previous spec, giving Max that razor-sharp front end he desperately craves. And, I mean, for the first 2 sectors, it was working. He was matching the Mercedes to the millisecond.
But then he lost it at the absolute critical point of the track. And now, I mean, the fallout is huge. Max starts 5th today with a damaged car. And for those of you listening, this raises massive championship-altering concerns regarding Parc Fermé rules.
Yeah, the budget cap implications are huge here.
Exactly. Does Red Bull actually have the new spec spare parts to rebuild that chassis, or are they going to have to revert Max to the older, slower spec car?
That is the million-dollar question echoing through their garage right now. Because under the budget cap, teams don't just carry 5 spare floors of a brand new upgrade.
Right, they can't afford it.
No. If they revert to the old spec, he's a sitting duck. But even if they have the new parts, we really have to talk about Red Bull's historic Achilles heel this season, which is severe tire degradation.
Right, because if you don't have enough underfloor downforce, you have to stiffen the suspension to maintain the ride height. And that just transfers all the cornering load directly into the tire carcass, literally blistering it.
Exactly.
And we know the old RB22 ate its tires alive on heavy fuel loads compared to, Mercedes and Ferrari. We really don't know if this new aero package fixes that on a Sunday.
True, although, Isaac Hadjar had a surprisingly solid run in the other Red Bull. He's sitting comfortably ahead of the midfield, even if he's behind the top dogs. So the car clearly has pace. Honestly, if we connect this to the bigger picture, I think this crash is actually a good omen for Red Bull.
Wait, a good omen? He's in the wall and starting 5th.
Just hear me out. If you watch the onboard of Max climbing out of that wreckage, he has fire in his eyes again.
Oh, come on.
No, really. For the first time in 2026, he finally believes he has a machine that can fight at the absolute front. I mean, he was pushing beyond the limit because the car finally gave him the grip to do so. That belief, that psychological shift, that is worth more than a front row start.
I'm sorry, but I have to completely scoff at that romanticized view. Fire in your eyes doesn't score points when your chassis is in a million pieces and your structural tire management is suspect.
But the driver confidence.
Passion doesn't prevent your rear left tire from shearing on lap 20. I mean, he has a massive mountain to climb today.
He does, yeah, but he's climbing it with a car he finally trusts.
We'll see. Let's look at the teams looking to capitalize on this chaos, though. Ferrari and McLaren. Talk about 2 teams going in completely opposite directions. I mean, you might be looking at the timing screens wondering how Ferrari pulled that off yesterday.
Yeah, they woke up incredibly late in Q3. Out of nowhere, Leclerc and Hamilton briefly held a provisional 1-2.
And that is fascinating because the Red Bull ring is incredibly power sensitive. It's basically a series of drag strips connected by heavy braking zones. And Ferrari, well, they still lack ultimate engine grunt compared to the Mercedes power unit.
Exactly, yet they are starting 2nd and 3rd.
Because Ferrari is executing a brilliant, deliberate Sunday trap. Yes, they missed pole, but starting 2nd and 3rd allows them to dictate their absolute greatest strength right now, which is Sunday tire management.
Yeah, their long runs looked incredible.
Right. They ran slightly less wing in qualifying, knowing they couldn't match Mercedes in the corners, but that top speed keeps them in the DRS train during the race and protects the rubber.
While McLaren, man, if you're a McLaren fan listening right now, you probably want to throw your phone across the room.
Oh, they have to be miserable.
The MCL40 is just falling into a mid-season development black hole. Lando Norris is in 6th. Oscar Piastri's in 7th. It is the same story every single weekend for them.
It really is. They show up with this theoretically perfect Friday baseline. They look incredible in practice, and then they completely choke under Saturday pressure
Yeah.
because they're just utterly incapable of improving the car's setup as the track evolves.
I wouldn't call it choking, actually. It's a fundamental architectural flaw in the MCL40. Their long-run pace just eats tires far too aggressively.
Okay, explain that for us. Because I think people wonder, why does one car shred tires while another preserves them, even when they set the exact same lap time?
Well, it comes down to how a car generates its grip. Think of it like taking a tight corner in your road car. Aerodynamic downforce pushes the car into the track like a giant invisible hand, keeping it completely stable without sliding.
Right, planting it to the ground.
Exactly. Mechanical grip, however, relies entirely on the suspension geometry and the tires physically biting into the asphalt. McLaren just lacks that invisible aerodynamic hand. They are relying so heavily on mechanical grip to force the car around the corner that they're literally shearing the surface off the rubber by lap 10.
Well, I'm calling it right now. McLaren's 2026 season is effectively over. They are going backward in a development race where everyone else is finding chunks of time.
I think writing off McLaren's season is a bit premature.
Yeah.
But I do agree their failure this weekend is less interesting than Ferrari's genius. I mean, Ferrari recognized their engine bottleneck months ago. Instead of trying to chase Mercedes in single-lap qualifying pace, they deliberately sacrificed Saturday glory to build an unstoppable Sunday race pace monster.
Right.
They don't need pole if they can simply outlast Russell's tires by lap 15.
That makes sense. So what happens behind them, though? Because I'm looking at this midfield, and what I see is just a brutal development trap. It's a literal war of correlation right now. The 2026 grid is so ruthless. Let's start with the racing bulls, because the VTA RB03 looks spectacular here.
Yeah, and they are relying heavily on that exact mechanical group we just discussed.
They really are. Liam Lawson and Arvid Lindblad locked out the top of the midfield. Lawson edging out Lindblad to get into Q3 was a massive statement of intent, too. Like, he is marking his territory against the rookie. But their challenge is surviving heavy fuel today.
Right, because mechanical grip works wonders over one lap in qualifying, but carrying 100 kilos of fuel on a Sunday, that punishes those tires.
That's the trap, but at least they have pace. Because right behind them, the legacy teams are facing utter humiliation. I mean, Alpine. They brought a brand new front wing for the A526, and it did absolutely nothing.
Nothing at all.
Gasly missed Q3 by just 40 milliseconds, and Colapinto made a crucial error at turn 1 in Q2, so he starts 16th.
And it's the margins, right? 40 milliseconds is a gust of wind, a slight lockup, a suboptimal tire prep lap. But honestly, the real disappointment for me is Audi. They brought massive upgrades to this race, like a totally revamped floor, and they completely failed to maximize it. Gabriel Bortoleto in 12th, Nico Hülkenberg in 13th.
See, but I was looking at Audi's Friday long-run data, and it terrified me. If Bortoleto gets clean air today, he has the pace to carve straight through the Racing Bulls. Are they the actual dark horse here? Like, their qualifying was a mess, but the race pace looks menacing.
It's possible.
Then you have Haas. The VF26 hit a reinforced concrete ceiling in Q2. Behrman extracted every single ounce of performance for 14th, leaving Ocon 3/10 behind in 15th. That head-to-head gap between Behrman and Ocon is just widening every single weekend.
It really is. But let's talk about true despair for a second, Williams.
You say?
The FW48 is suffering a terminal correlation failure.
Oh, man. The abrasive asphalt of the Red Bull Ring just destroyed them. Both cars out in Q1. Carlos Sainz managed to drag it ahead of Alex Albon, but they are both stuck at the back. I mean, they are desperately praying for their post-summer break B-spec car, but summer is a long way away when you're bleeding time like this.
Yeah, it's going to be a long couple of months. And joining them in the basement is Cadillac. Their aero package is just far too immature right now.
Yeah.
The inter-team battle saw Perez beat Bottas by a mere 85 milliseconds, but they were still both knocked out in Q1.
Well, there are whispers they might just break Parc Fermé and start from the pit lane just to run wild setup experiments. Because, honestly, what do they have to lose?
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you are that far off the pace, Sunday isn't a race anymore. It's basically an incredibly public test session.
Which brings us to the most staggering result of the day, Aston Martin. The AMR 26P is dead last, 21st and 22nd.
Right.
A humiliating 2.8 seconds off the pace on the calendar's shortest track. And yet, Fernando Alonso gets on the mic and claims their data gathering experiments were quote-unquote positive. I literally had to laugh out loud. You are 3 seconds off the pace, Fernando. Like the Aston Martin project is a temporary embarrassment right now.
Okay, this raises an important point about how we evaluate these teams, and I am going to sharply defend Aston Martin and Cadillac here.
Really? Defending 2.8 seconds off the pace?
Yes, because you as a fan are looking at Q1 lap times. The engineers are looking at factory simulator correlation.
Okay, explain that for the listeners then. Why does a terrible lap time mean a good day for the factory?
Because when your car is effectively a transitional mule for a totally new aero concept, Q1 times are entirely irrelevant. I mean, for the last 6 months, Aston Martin's wind tunnel was telling them one thing, and the real car on the track was doing the exact opposite.
Which is a nightmare.
Right. That means you're developing blind. So Alonso is happy because the airflow structures on the real car finally match the wind tunnel data. That is a massive victory for them. It means the factory can finally trust their development tools again, even if it looks like a complete disaster on the timing screens.
I mean, I understand the engineering logic, sure.
Yeah.
But from a racing perspective, it is just brutal to watch a 2-time world champion calling a 21st place finish a positive experiment. But look, let's tie this entire fractured grid back to the championship narrative as we head into the race today, because we have so many volatile elements in play.
We really do. I mean, if Red Bull is forced to revert Max to an old-spec chassis today, his race is entirely compromised. He'll be fighting tire degradation from lap 1. And if George Russell's tires fall off a cliff because Mercedes compromised their Sunday setup for a desperate low downforce pole position.
Does Ferrari just walk away with the Austrian Grand Prix? Like, do Leclerc and Hamilton just cruise past a struggling Russell and a limping Verstappen to take a 1-2 finish?
It is an incredibly probable scenario. Ferrari set the trap, and the rest of the grid might just walk right into it.
Well, before we wrap up, we need to leave you with something to think about regarding that Turn 9 incident, because we talked about Russell exploiting the dashboard glitch, but let's take it a step further. If an algorithmic dash telemetry system can successfully override human marshals waving physical flags on the track, where does this actually end?
That is the real danger here.
Are we approaching a future where race control is fully automated by AI? Where a computer decides if a crash is a yellow flag or a red flag based on instantaneous impact telemetry, just completely bypassing the human element? It's a scary thought. And more importantly, as fans of the sport, do we actually want a computer making life or death safety calls while drivers thread the needle at 180 miles an hour?
I mean, it fundamentally changes the DNA of motor racing.
Exactly. And we want to hear your takes on this. Are the drivers driving the cars, or are they just managing software loopholes at this point? You need to follow Paddock Notes on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Jump into the comments, give us your unfiltered analysis, because we are going to be breaking down every lap, every penalty, and every radio message as this race unfolds.
And please do leave those comments. I am literally the only one on this team who actually reads the TikTok comments, and I need backup against some of these wild conspiracy theories you guys are cooking up in there.
Hey, some of those theories are starting to look like reality after yesterday's qualifying. But seriously, as you watch the lights go out today, keep an eye on Turn 9. Keep an eye on those tire strategies. The rules are murky, the grid is hostile, and this championship is wide open. Enjoy the race, everyone.